It is one of those albums that I feel like you put in and you're like, I don't want to skip tracks. I don't want to stop until it's over. I want to start it from the beginning. It's like a journey that's very cohesive.
Every time I was listening to this song, I thought he says Coldplay is still metal. And I thought that's a badass lyric. Like, I don't really know what it means.
Yeasayer is NFL quarterback Randall Cunningham.
Okay.
You know?
You did such a good job landing the plane, and then I took the plane and started off again and just crashed it.
No.
Yeasayer's Odd Blood was released on February 8th, 2010, recorded in Jerseyville Studio in Woodstock, New York, and Great City Productions in New York City. This album was released on Secretly Canadian and produced by the band themselves. Man, I'm really glad you picked this one for us to talk about today. This album's really compelling to me for a number of reasons. But we're going to talk through this album using 10 questions that just kind of help us explore things. I'm going to pitch the first one to you and say, like, not only why did you choose this, but just what makes this album interesting for you?
Upon first listen, and still when I go back to this album, I'm just blown away at the sound that they've accomplished on this album. Yeasayer is also compelling because they have three songwriters in their band. Those songwriters are Anon Wilder, Chris Keating, and Ira Wolf Teuton. Or Teuton. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. I'd say these three guys make a compelling record because they collaborate really well. So you said this album came out in 2010. I feel like we've discussed several albums in 2010. Just seems like a great time for music where people are using technology in a way where collaborators are no longer have to be in the same room when they collaborate with each other and can pass things back and forth to different locations. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this record is I totally forgot that Odd Blood existed. After listening to it over and over again in that time frame that it came out in 2010, uh, I I forgot it existed, and we discussed Hot Chip one episode, and after listening to Hot Chip, my service said, "Hey, how about this song?" And it was "Ambling Alp" from Odd
Mm.
Blood. I was like, "Oh my goodness, I totally forgot about this album." So since then, I've just been listening to it on nonstop, and it sounds just as good today as it did 15 years ago.
I totally agree. I also lost track of this band at some point. Uh, and yeah, man, I have the same response in many ways. I think this album is very maximalist in its approach. Like, it's just stuffed to the brim of synthesizers and arpeggios and riffs and melodies and harmonies and it's also this great snapshot. Like you said, in 2010, we've talked about at least a couple albums in there. We've talked about plenty of other music that came out around that time. It's just a really good capture of what was happening. I do think about bands like Hot Chip. I think about bands like Animal Collective, pop music with a tinge of intensity and almost like insanity. There's some wild sounding stuff on this album, but that was kind of what was in the air at the time. And it kind of takes me back to listen to this and go there. So yeah, I feel like it is like this album speaks to what was going on at the time, and I think that makes it really interesting. In addition, to just being awesome, like this is just like you said. You've said to me a couple times, I think, about not just this album but other Yeasayer albums. It's just like endless melodies and just memorable songs. And I am struck by how much quality material is on this album and how different it is from the album that came before it, which leads me to my question, next one, which is the earliest memory of Yeasayer or Odd Blood. Like, how did you come across this?
Okay, well, it was my good friend Roger. I've talked about Roger before. I was living in Southern California and I just took a job in Maine and was ready to leave San Diego. And Roger burnt he burnt me some CDs and handed me, I don't know, 8 or 10 CD out. They were all albums. It was like, here are some albums that just came out you need to hear. I've got a list of them. This is good. These are the albums that these are the ones I could remember. I'm sure there was some I forgot. Inner Speaker by Tame Impala,
Oh yeah.
Treats by Sleigh Bells. Do you remember
Mm,
that?
I sure
That
do.
was really a unique album. Broken Bells,
Mm,
self-titled. How about Sir Lucius Left Foot from Big Boy?
wow.
And Plastic Beach from
Yeah.
Gorillaz, The Suburbs from Arcade Fire.
Mm.
So these are a stack of albums that Roger that all came out around the same time. I want to
Man.
say in 2010, and that's what I was listening to when I was driving home from San Diego, and then driving to relocate in Maine. But yeah, just so my early that's my earliest memory is Odd Blood. You know, I get handed this stack of CDs, never heard of Yeasayer, just took my friend's recommendation and threw it in immediately, mind blown. And, you know, I don't know that the style, the heavy electronic and synthesizer style was super, is what I clung to immediately. It was all the hooks. We talked about Hot Chip. I remember hearing Hot Chip the first time and hearing electronic music with singing hooks. And then this is the same thing. It's like you hear this, it's like, oh my gosh, the vocals on this album are amazing. What we've always been drawn to is that genre bending collaboration that's like, oh, here's some of all the things I like thrown into one style, and that's what Yeasayer did with Odd Blood.
Good on Roger, man. That's a great list of albums. And it also just kind of speaks to what was going on. This was just a great time for indie music and finding all of that stuff. One of the main sources for me was Sirius XMU, which at some point was Sirius left of center. And it was the Sirius channel. And then there was the Sirius XM merger. And I struggle to remember the exact year in which that happened, but there's like their indie channel, right? And that really helped me find a lot of cool bands. And of course, like you had Pitchfork out there, and that was a good resource too. There were a few different ones, but I remember specifically hearing 2080 off of All Our Symbols, their first album, Yeasayer's first album, and hearing it, and it's so wild. Like it's you hear some of that stuff, some of the same elements on Odd Blood, though it's a different album. It's a bit more like, I don't know, psych folk. It's like, how do you even categorize some of these things? But it was a little less polished. It was a little more raw, but it had those like really high pitched sort of lyrics or vocals that were singing kind of in unison in the background. And it was like, what is this? What are they saying? It was insane. And so I think that by the time, so by the like, and I think there were probably a couple other songs off of All Our Symbols that piqued my interest. Of course, if you found something that you liked in those days, you'd go download it, or like you then pick up the trail and then go find it. I can't remember whether I was on like RDO or whatever the pre Spotify thing was that I was on, but I remember following the scent on that a little bit, and then once the tracks like Ambling Alp and one O&E, however you want to say that, started to come into play. I remember it was just like, oh yeah, I remember this band, repeat exposure to these things. And you start to notice like, okay, I'm consistently noticing that I like tracks from this band. What are your standout tracks on Odd Blood?
Yeah, I was gonna say you should list yours, and then whichever tracks you don't say, then I would just say those. No, this is a fun question. Before that, I just got another great early memory is when I was moving from San Diego to Maine. I think I spent about a week or two in Kentucky, and we linked up, and I played that Yeasayer for you. And I just remember playing one and being like, dude, I can't get this song out of my head. I'm just listening to this on repeat over and over again. So that's a great memory I just got there. Yeah. Okay, standout tracks. Ambling Alp, Matter Red, I Remember, One, Love Me Girl, Rome, Mondegrin, or however you say that title.
Yeah, I had a lot of the same ones. I think like the two singles that I remember were One and Ambling Alp. They're both great. I tried to narrow it down as much as I could, and I had to give a special shout out to Rome, which I kind of forgot about until we were preparing for this, and now I'm like obsessed with that song. It's really really cool, and Mondegreen, um, dude, I loved that song in the beginning and I listen to it now, I will wake up like when we prep for these conversations, we listen to these albums for a long time and we sit with them and there will be just things that linger. And one of the things that happens to me every day when I get up, I don't know if this happens to you, but when I wake up in the morning, I have a song in my head. Like every morning, I have a song in my head, and it's sometimes something I've listened to. Sometimes it's out of left field. It's like I heard someone say a sentence which reminded me of a lyric from something the night before, and then the next morning I wake up with a song in my head. But preparing for this, I wake up with Mondegreen in my head, and when you hear Mondegreen, you are like ready to get down to business. I absolutely love that song. I'm like, it gets me fired up. I'm ready to go. It's a great driving song. If you need to drive somewhere with a purpose and with like a real serious look in your eyes, you throw that on. So yeah, man, I absolutely love it. Those are the ones that stood out to me, though. It's like a really solid album. So it's a difficult question. Another difficult question, I think, is a favorite lyric. I'll be curious to see if we're around the same place on this. Do you have a standout lyric on this album?
How Rome starts. When you see me, better make a phone call because I'm a bad brain gravel gone fiend with no time at all. But just know that I'll drive so when I deposit your body in the Gulf Coast, darling, tomorrow. Gosh, I mean, that's just, and the rhythm, I had to look that up because um, he gets a lot of lyrics in there and I
He
didn't know
does.
exactly what he was saying. I don't know what I was singing when I used to sing along with this, but gosh, Rome, you hit the nail on the head. This song is just unbelievable.
Song really slaps. And it's like, okay, my favorite lyric on the album was originally going to be something until I realized it's actually not a lyric on the album and it's in Rome. Okay. So in Rome, I swear, every time I was listening to this song, I thought he says Coldplay is still metal. And I thought that's a badass lyric. Like I don't really know what it means, but maybe they're just taking the piss out of Coldplay. And I was like, I love that. Coldplay is still metal. And it's not. I take the gold plate and silver medal. And it's like, okay, all right, that's fine. I really think that I'm just going to pretend that he's saying that. But so my favorite lyric is, I mean, dude, Ambling Alp is like a pep talk. uh like if you need a little encouragement, it's crazy. It's like an inspirational song. Now the world can be an unfair place at times, but your lows will have their complement of highs. If anyone should cheat you, take advantage of, or beat you, raise your head and wear your wounds with pride. And then it gets into the chorus. I love that whole sequence of that song. It's rare that you have some like a song that does have this inspirational, these lyrics that actually like land. You know what I mean? Like it's like it kind of works for me. Like it really does pep me up a little bit. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right.
While we're on the topic of uh not knowing the lyrics, I guess this isn't really about not knowing the lyrics, it's more about not knowing history. But I am driving with my wife and we're listening to Ambling Alp and I'm like, I hear Max Schmeling,
Right.
and for some reason, I, with all the confidence in the world, and I guess I probably still believe this until yesterday when you sent me that article where they talked about each track on the album.
Yeah.
uh I told my wife that Max Schmeling was a general in the Third Reich army and that this was about a pep talk, that the Ambling Alp was somebody that was fighting against the Nazis in World War II, and then,
Did she
and then
Google it immediately?
no, she's like, wow,
That's
interesting.
cool. I'm
She's
impressed that
probably
you knew that.
yeah, no, she's probably half listening. She's doing the half listening. Is like, this
Yep.
is the part where my husband talks about music, and I don't really have to pay attention. I'm just like, yep, yep.
What's a peak moment of this album for you?
I said the peak moment is Rome. You know, what I love about Odd Blood is a lot of the songs just have great energy and rhythm. The beats are amazing. It's a very dancey album. And so you have all these upbeat songs, and then I feel like Rome is the pinnacle of all those songs.
You could kind of pick a few different places there. I think Rome's a good candidate. I went with Mondegreen though. I like the fact that in Mondegreen they talk about how they kind of had these cheap horns mocking what they were going to have actual horns do. But they recorded the real ones and they were just happier with the crappy synthesizers. So they went with that. Curious to hear who you think of as Yeasayer's contemporaries.
Yeah, you know, at first I had a lot of trouble and was like, gosh, I mean, nobody sounds like this. But then I just had to go with the obvious choice. I found Yeasayer again because I was listening to Hot Chip, and I think the Hot Chip is a very good comparison to Yeasayer because of the multiple songwriters in the band, a very collaborative process. They're doing the same genre, so I think you got to put Hot Chip as one. I also said LCD Soundsystem just
Mm.
because it's a band who's relying heavily on punk influences and post punk influences mixed with electronic. So those are my two.
I also totally agree with those. I had Hot Chip on my list as well. I would probably put Animal Collective in there. I feel like they're a different band, but it's also very collaborative. It also chock full of synthesizers doing wild stuff and shaping kind of like madness into a coherent singable pop song. We've talked about Chick 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 a few times. I'll throw them in there as well. Also, there was a band called Cut Copy. I don't know if you listen to them a ton, but Cut Copy, I feel like kind of reminds me. I feel like they're kind of in the same ballpark. If Odd Blood was a movie, what movie would Odd Blood be?
Odd Blood is the 90s cult classic Go.
Oh, that's a good one. That's better than mine.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that movie, and I was like trying to think of something that was okay. Here's what I was thinking of. What's a movie that's fast paced,
Yep.
fun to watch, lots of energy?
Yeah.
And that one came to me, and then also thought about what are some of the topics of Odd Blood: addiction, love,
Mm.
relationships, a drug czar, life on the road. So these are some of the same things that you get in Go.
I would almost don't want to answer because I prefer yours, but I will say that I chose Speed Racer by the Wachowskis. That version they did. The reason I'm hesitant to even say it is because actually, where I really like Odd Blood, I'm not as crazy about Speed Racer. It was really panned at the time, and surprisingly, Odd Blood, when I was looking up reviews, I think like it got a 6.1 on Pitchfork. I don't think this album got the love that it deserved. I think that people were really expecting something more like their first album, but it's really underappreciated at the time. So was Speed Racer, though it has kind of had a resurgence too, but for the same reasons, like colorful, psychedelic, genre bending, kind of initially misunderstood. The earnest weirdness in this album and kind of ahead of its time in some ways. But man, Go kind of checks all those boxes too. And I actually enjoy Go more than I do Speed Racers. So I prefer your answer. If there's a band or artist that's going to cover Odd Blood, who do you want to hear do it?
Okay, I just realized how lame this answer is because I just picked their contemporaries to cover it. But I created a super group called Sound Chip that consists only of Joe Goddard and James Murphy, called Sound Chip.
Dude, can I pay money for Soundchip to like come play at like my daughter's birthday party or something? Like I need to get the word out about Soundchip.
I think those guys are gonna command a high, it's gonna get a lot to get, James Murphy out of the Bronx or wherever he lives.
That's probably true. So I went for a classic. I'm going back in the time machine, and I want like prime Tears for Fears to cover this album. The pop sensibilities mixed with the synth pop is really, to me, the special alchemy of new wave music that really reminds me of Odd Blood. So I wanted to hear Tears for Fears. So just go back to the originals, and also like, to be fair, that's not a thing that Yeasayer hasn't heard before. Like the Tears for Fears comparisons are out there, and I think a lot of it, they kind of think it's maybe more the way that the vocals are mixed and all that, and I think that's probably true to a certain extent. But there's something about the actual musical songwriting sensibilities I think overlap a lot. So Tears for Fears is going to cover this. One of our favorite questions every time we talk about an album: if Yeasayer was a sports team or athlete, who would Yeasayer be?
Yeasayer is NFL quarterback Randall Cunningham,
Okay.
you know? Because there Randall Cunningham was electric. He was must-see television. When he had the ball, you had to watch. But and he was, he was that first athletic quarterback who would tuck it and run and was like the dual threat. But I argue he's not the first, just like Yeasayer was not the first doing what they were doing. They saw they took what somebody was doing that was really cool and then did their own thing that was amazing too. And I say Randall Cunningham got his from Warren Moon. So I
Mm.
almost went with Warren Moon, but I went with Randall Cunningham. Just a fun. You knew if you watched him play, it was going to be a fun game to watch because everything he touched was electric.
Love that. Okay, if sticking with the NFL too, for me, Yeasayer or the 2000s era, pick your team of the Philadelphia Eagles. Talking about the McNabb, Westbrook, early Andy Reid years. It's like similar. It's like creative, not always mainstream, experimental identity, underdog mentality, polarizing decisions. I feel like there are a lot of boxes to be checked here.
And we were kind of thinking the same thing. I was
Yeah.
thinking, what offense, what because I think Odd Blood is just it's a fun journey. And it we were talking about the tracks earlier. It is one of those albums that I feel like you put in and you're like, I don't want to skip tracks. I don't want to stop until it's over. I want to start it from the beginning. It's like a journey that's very cohesive and all fits together. So yeah, I love it. We were thinking the same thing.
What's your final takeaways on this album, Odd Blood?
Here's my final takeaway. I feel like this is a band who figured themselves out and is like, here's what we do, and we're doing it well. This is a band who is uh becoming great songwriters, figuring out how to put their stamp on a time in music that was just a great time.
100% agree. I think it is emblematic of its time, also drawing heavily from different styles of music. Talked a lot about the 80s new wave part of it, but there's some sort of 70s prog rock in there. They talk a lot about like 90s dance music and how that influenced it. So you can feel all of those things in there, but I just feel like it is a collection of great songs, but it's also just, it does take me back. It's sort of a time machine to listen to this album and step into it. I wouldn't say that it sounds dated. It's just of its time. They kept going and their albums sounded different. They don't all sound like Odd Blood. They would evolve. They would try different things. And they really did have some quality stuff that came out after this album.
They broke up and 2020 maybe, after that album Erotic Reruns. I think that was a 2019 album.
You know, those retirements don't always stick. So maybe we'll have some more Yeasayer someday, and we'll
Let's
come back.
hope
If we
so.
do, we'll come back and talk about it.
Hey, let me give all the shout outs, not the shout outs, but hey, do us a favor. If you like the episode or you've liked another video and you haven't hit the subscribe button, do us a favor at the bottom, subscribe. We're doing episodes all the time. Leave in the comments what album you want us to discuss. We want to hear what albums you love. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, do us a favor. It helps us out and we can provide more content that you love.
We'll be back with another video before you know it. So stick around. What? Stick around? What am I saying?
I dare you
You
to
did
stick
such a good
around.
job landing the plane, and then I took the plane and started off again and just
No,
crashed it.
no, no. It was bouncing on the runway and you just nosedived it. You're like,
Yeah.
you're like, no, let me have it.